There's a creator composing understanding words of culture brilliance, powering a rebalance of the elements equally. Pages of rejuvenated reaffirmation, simply the almighty leadership of insightful craft work that stands to build through any confrontation born to be. Yet his daily duty is as a journalist that questions properly and uses his ears to filter the real. And as the art decays by dilution, he concentrates the best again and again, exposing it in the print. Today's journalist and tomorrow's historian, he listens to share. Here is that necessary attempt executed again and again and again. This is the Power Right Show on S.STREET Media. This is your brother, the lone low life with the home sewn garment, the Boricua with the build, the true and living God, stepping in score, Sunya's Allah, aka S.STREET Low, and we're on S.STREET Media, the evolution of media, where every intrigue will have its own show, every incredible thought will have its own episode, and every timeless insight will be archived. And as I always say, this show is about my element of hip-hop, what I like to call the writer of art on art and science on music. Creative works that stand the test of time and also give detail. That science on music, I like to call it, though. Not just this beat is hot, that beat is smoking, that beat is cold. You know what I mean? Like color, you know, like temperature grades for stuff. And hey, still, this is the only show in history on this element of hip-hop that I did not create, but I pioneered. Right? That I was one of those to further by detailing it, by calling it that. And that's been the case since 1995. I can show you that old news clipping in 1995. Baruch College, CUNY's Baruch College, the ticker. I was thinking, like, I don't want to write about these niggas and just not be doing anything. And I said, how could this be creative, though? And then, you know, KRS-One was in my head. He's a hero, Guru was in my head. And I was like, you know what, though? I'll make my own element. And I've been trying to call it that since, though. You know what I mean? And working off the inspiration of the big homie Bones Malone. You know what I mean? And the ancestor of Miri Baraka. You know what I mean? And as we were talking off air, definitely going into other lanes is what Baraka was doing, so it all makes sense to me, you know what I mean? But my IG is Sunez. My email is sunez97@gmail.com. You could email me, give me lots of money. I got a book. I might give you the book. You give me the money. I give you the book. You give me money. I don't give you the book. But one of the inspirations, one of the realities of me writing this book was two things. There was a massive amount of music in 2018, and it changed hip-hop a little bit. I kept thinking about 1998, you know, because 1999 was one of the most frustrating years of hip-hop I ever listened to as a listener, you know. Just think about the Wu and the disappointments that the Wu had. Even though Jizz is Beneath the Surface, though, is the album that inspired me as a writer. So it's all weird. You know what I mean? Or continued the next inspiration as a writer, I should say, right? Second verse, Beneath the Breaker Breaker, second verse, right? But the thing about it was, when I was writing like this reel of 2018, which I wrote for every single year, which except for that year, 2018, and 2019, I just did it in this show. I did it in this show. Just too much music. I can't write all my life. But I was writing and I was like, you know what though? I think there's too much music, so I don't like the categorizing of this is number 5 record, this is number 4. That is so arbitrary. It doesn't make any sense though. When you say who's the best player of the year, you got a handful of people you're thinking about. You say all time, maybe you got like, you still have a handful of people you're thinking about. When you say best record of the year and at least 30 of them are quality, that's a problem because you're not writing to rank things. That's not what journalism and real good history is doing, because the music journalism, the history of a record, right? The gap between journalist and historian for a music journalist is right there when he makes a best of a year, you know? Does he write it for the immediate clicks though? You sell out? Or do you write it so people could go back years from now and say, you know, I missed a lot of music, you know? I missed a lot of stuff, you know what I mean? and you go back and say, wow, these are the best records to get, I should get these. But it would do a great disservice, I thought, if I had 10 records and there's really 50 that were worth checking out, worth enjoying. And now that you could stream, you didn't have to buy all of them, so you could just enjoy streaming them for like a month, 2 months, and have fun going back in the crates. And then certain individuals had massive amounts of work. And none other was more impressive to me that year than Napoleon the Legend, my guest today. You know, he dominated, and like a little kid that was, when if you're a Mets fan, you wait for Strawberry to always hit the home run. He never was clutch though, so it was always disappointing. You know what I mean? He never was clutch though. He just was so dope, but he wasn't clutch. You know what I mean? So always waiting for that big bomb and stuff, and it never happened. 1988 happened, and that's why I don't root for the Dodgers though. So go Rays, right? But the thing about it was, I used to tell Napoleon, I was like, hey, you need to get all this stuff down. You got too much. I'm waiting. He's like, yeah, it's coming. And then, man, it exploded on the map. You know what I mean? Record after record. And he was the epitome of this. And he's the epitome of this nature of great MCs, good MCs, shitty MCs, all throwing out lots of records. And really taking away like that idea that too much work spoils. So for a lot of the guys, it has for me. I get bored the next year. For you, Napoleon, though, a lot of it has been the diversity of production, the diversity of the style that you've given. And I'm starting here because this is where it's at. How the hell are you writing all this stuff? You know, like, how are you getting all this stuff out? You know what I mean? You said there was a flood, but then now that initial flood is gone. Like, it's just now daily life of just writing and writing. You know what I mean?
Right.
And with that, welcome.
Yeah, I'm honored, man, and I'm honored by that intro. I mean, I've been trying to, when you're in the type of zone I'm in, you don't self-analyze and stop and be like, yo, this is going on. But
right.
But I've come to a point sometimes where I'm stopping like, damn, I've been in the zone for like 4 years, 3 good years, and that's the best way I could explain it. You know, when you have athletes. And I used to, I love basketball. I used to play basketball.
No doubt. Yeah.
We used to hear about the zone with Michael Jordan and all that. And I used to have that when I played. Like, there was some games where you go off and you don't even think no more. And it becomes effortless and it's fun. There's no pressure. You're not in your head about anything. And I got to a point where it's like that, and that's the way I create. That's the way I write. I wake up in the morning like you know how sometimes you wake up in the morning and you feel like you woke up too early. You might need 1 or 2 extra hours.
Yeah, all the time. I got kids.
But I can't go back to sleep because I'm up. I'm alive. Let me write. That's the type of like motivation I get, because I'm like, I'm excited to do this. You know what I'm saying? And it's got to a point where it's really fun. And I think that actually elevated, my art, because I'm having more fun than I ever had because of the zone that I'm in.
Right. If you listeners go back and find that Power Right show where you were first on the show, and this was the black privilege times when you were doing the mixtapes, right? And they were showing all the clues. They were all in there. The songwriting abilities, the flood abilities, and the thematic presence, right? And what was interesting is that when you were doing all that work, right? It was also the change in the career path, doing this 100%.
Yep.
And I think like now, like, you're in the midst of a career, like it's a real career. You know what I mean? And it's just real powerful. I try to teach, and whatever you could say on this, but I think, as someone who also writes and creates, I've always taught the students, since I teach them that everything is mathematics, then we just don't know the equations. And a lot of times when we're creating, we look at it mysteriously, But it's really about knowing those kind of patterns that put us into that zone.
Right.
I wouldn't want you to reveal the pattern on. It's just whack MCs trying to emulate the pattern, right? But I feel like you found some type of pattern.
Right.
You know?
No, you're right, though. No, you know what it is, though. I can reveal some things because you know me, I think knowledge should be shared. I mean, I'm like that. You know, I if you want to support, you can send me money too, right? I got my albums, but I share my albums too.
Right.
I think I got into a workflow also. You know what I'm saying? And people don't think about it like that. Like it's an output. I don't want to make it seem too much like a business, but it is kind of in the way where you have an output. These are products that you put out. And I got a better workflow where these mixtapes were like the training ground, where it's like the concept was still this mixtape, 1, 2, 3, 4. Shout out my boy Brian Winston, who also helped me with the first two, was to show people how I wanted to sound. Because I wasn't getting the right beats I wanted. I wasn't having the right connections as far as production or putting my vision out. So I'm like, let me take my favorite stuff. My boy would send me some stuff that I didn't know about that was ill, and let me show people how I want to sound, right? But I was putting projects together. So even though I was taking other people's beats, I was producing myself. And I didn't even realize that. So it got to the point where I understood workflow, and it went from, as a artistically, let me dig in my head to write the best verse I could. But now it's like a verse is so trivial to me because I could write you a verse in 5 minutes, and I do, and it sound the way it sound. But now it's like it got to a point where it's like verse, song, projects. Now I think of whole projects. They're the concepts that come to mind. Now I think about from the visual, from the song structure, from the thematics and everything. So it's like it got large. When I used to be so thinking about bars and stuff like that. I don't even think about that no more. It just got larger as I was putting these projects out. I started thinking about, okay, in retrospect, I could listen to myself. I'm like, this was missing this. I could have did this better. I could have did this better than the next. Then my workflow is like clockwork. I know what I got to do.
But it's an add-on for the next work.
Right. So it's a journey, and it's like every work brings on the next work. And if you really analyze my music, I put clues that you could catch in the future works that from my first. When I did Bronze Saints, my first album, the skits were from music from Bronze Saints. So there's a lot of things that link together that people don't realize.
You know what's interesting is that I was hearing the first album, Awakening. You know what I mean? And there's not too many albums I remember where I heard them though. You know what I'm saying? And a lot, and Special Guys, You, Spit Gems, Ka. There's certain records I remember where I was, certain songs, Starving Bee. You know what I mean? And I was listening to it, and you sounded so much younger. It was almost like you had good dribble, but now you got Kyrie handle. Like you mastered a lot of the space between the words, a lot of the space between the lines. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
And it's just an incredible development. You know what I mean? I just have to tell the listener, go in that Bandcamp and then listen. You could hear the development. You know what I mean? And it's just it's almost like you knew your persona, and then you defined it with those Steal the Mixtapes volumes, and then all of a sudden, every single album is having its own theme. But when you work with, we're gonna go through these albums, particularly this year. Really can only focus on 2020 as we should. But I mean, the bevy of work from 2019. This will have to be a historical piece we do, down the line.
Right.
But and we might have to make reference to it on some occasion, in this hour. But when you work with different producers, right, just in general, are you saying like, listen, this is his sound, I think I want to go for this type of these concepts here?
Well, it depends.
Because a lot of producers now, right, they just throw 1,000 beats.
Right.
So there is no real...
Yeah, there's rarely producers except who I'm working with now, who ever threw concepts at me.
Right.
So it's always just beats. So a lot of the albums, except probably for a few exceptions. Of course, there's exceptions. I have so many songs.
Sure.
But it's been just send me the beat. I feel like I'm producing at the same time. Like they kind of have the structure, but even when you hear like a skit from a movie or something in the song, like I'm the one that put that there.
Right.
You know what I mean? Or a little effect that's like a kung fu effect or something just to add spice. Like I do that. So I've always been like, that's what Still This Mixtape did. Like I realized I'm also a producer. So even if somebody else is doing the beat, so when it comes to song concepts, yeah, come up with them. You know, I just hear what it is, and it always ends up fitting. You know, yeah,
absolutely. You know, it's interesting. I want to keep it general now before we get into the stuff, because there's some. I want to segue into some of the things that have been added to the repertoire, and a lot of times we don't look at artists though, and we can't.
Right.
I can't do this. I just can't. I just hope that the barrel doesn't run dry on content with them.
Right.
But you're an artist that we could always keep listening to, even, I'm just saying, even if the beats were fair.
Right.
You know, kind of like the Nas quotient, because you always have something new to say. So even if Nas has like the shittiest beats and we scan them, he's like, oh, I hate all these beats though. I'll listen to it later though.
Right.
You know, because you need to hear what he's gonna say and how he's gonna say it and stuff, right? This is the case with you. And I think that in the last year, you know, maybe even earlier, especially during 2019, I noticed, and we talked about it, that you were becoming more overtly political in thought.
Yeah.
Not so much that it wasn't in there, if you look in earlier records, though, but willing to comment particularly about issues. You were willing to talk about situations, you know what I mean?
Right.
Not only here in America, but abroad, right?
Right.
And it leads me to think of, immediately, I was thinking of that connection with other political people that have built, like Michael Brooks, though, who passed away and stuff.
Rest in
and
peace.
I didn't know about him because I don't follow a lot of politics. I just analyze information given, but I'm not really watching a lot of political shows.
Right.
And the first I heard of him was when you had bought his book and you had saluted his book and stuff, you know what I mean? Which I'm halfway through it, so it's a short read.
Right.
But what I found interesting about Michael Brooks is that, and quickly tell that story about him and everything, because I think it deserves merit, because I found that the way that he writes, and maybe he never noticed this, but the way he's writing that book, right? I'm forgetting the name of the book. I'll pull it up now.
Against the Web.
Against the Web. Thank you.
Yeah.
Against the Web, right? And he's going at really like right-wing people, you know, thinkers like that are extremists, you know what I mean?
Slash grifters.
Yeah, exactly. You know what I mean? And what's interesting is that he writes a lot like hip-hop.
Right.
A lot of his stuff in that book is written, it's very articulate. You don't think so. You wouldn't think that. But we know, like, the way he's writing and the way he goes at them, he's bombing people up. Right. It's a book where he's bombing up a whole side.
And things like that. And he is hip-hop. He's a hip-hop head. Yeah. That's how me and him connected.
Right.
Yeah, before all that. So it's an astute, like, observation.
Yeah. Yeah, because I don't see too many people write that way. You know what I mean? Right. And it's really that generation that it's really our generation of hip hop that has brought that into writing. You know what I mean? But along the way of you getting more political and willing to put more political thought out there, you met him and everything like that. Not only just him, but as an artist, though, what is the extent of political views that are necessary to throw in a record? You know what I mean?
Yo, I mean, I think it's to each his own. First off, I think it's see, I don't want to be dogmatic, because as much as I'm political, I understand that politics is something that can be divisive, because politics is arguing. It's like who's getting these resources? How are they sorting out? That's all politics is. Mm-hmm. So the political winners you see in every country, they get all the resources and the others don't get them. That's what politics is. People don't understand that part. So that's the fight. So there's a fight when it comes to politics. And when there's a fight, there's some people that are going to like it and some people that are not going to like it. My thing is that I do my best not to detract from the experience of like the actual hip hop, and just throw some flavor, throw some gems that'll probably spark an idea or something like that. And I'm more confident with it because also I'm always learning. You know, I'm not like I'm always developing. I'm always evolving. Even my train of thought and trying to peep what's going on here, peep what's going on overseas in Africa, in Europe, and trying to in Latin America a lot, and kind of trying to see like, damn, like the same struggles are kind of going on. It's a different environment, it's a different culture, but the same struggles are going on, and I think it's important. I drank the Kool-Aid for too long myself. So it's like, if I'm able to see that, damn, I drank the Kool-Aid, I'm sure a lot of people have too, and people might not be aware. And plus, we gotta admit too, after 2016, when Trump came to office, a lot of people got politicized because now everything is polarized, and it got to a point where we was asleep. We was living the neoliberal dream, you know, the Obama years, you know, but coming from the Clinton years and all that, you know, we was all into that bad, like let's succeed, let's make some money, let's be CEOs. Everybody's a CEO with their little card, even though they don't have a corporation behind it. But if you want to be a CEO, good on you, bro. It's cool, man. But
CEO of my life, right?
Right, exactly, right. And that's something too. But I felt like I had an awakening where it's like, look, man, there's time is ticking in our lives. Time is ticking, even on Earth. Like a lot of resources on Earth are getting ravaged by the way we're living, and we're not noticing it. And especially when you're in New York, you're in the freaking center of this whole thing. And there's a lot of things you don't notice.
A lot of it reminds me of Immortal Technique. You know, my man Immortal Technique, he once said that they tell me I'm talking about politics, but he said everything is politics.
Right.
Because everything is really like who has and who doesn't.
Right.
You know, and who's keeping us from it. And, you know, I segue into that, your thoughts quickly on Ice Cube, his contract with Black America, whatever you think about, because in a lot of ciphers, because of the way he has targeted it as an ADOS thing, American Descendants of Slavery, for most people that are, for really all the people that are American Descendants of Slavery, I wouldn't be included in that.
Right.
Even though I've been a colony for the last 100 years, so
Right.
technically I am in this new slavery. And a lot of people I've seen, even online, as we saw that one time,
Right.
they'll even say you an actual African. Like if you want to get like
Right,
that,
right,
an actual
right, right,
African
right.
who lived a lot of his life here, who really grew
right,
up here.
right.
So it really is true.
And who's the actual descendant of slaves?
Yeah.
Also.
Right.
But not here.
Right.
Somewhere else.
Doesn't have the right to talk about this.
Right.
You know what I mean? So, you know, I find it intriguing. What do you think about him throwing this out there at this time and stuff? And
well, like, look, let me say, I'm a big Ice Cube fan. So
same here.
We could separate art, you know, from politics. There's two different things. I don't question, and I'm in a place to question his intent. I probably think he probably wants to try to help out. The thing is, like, you guys, when you pay attention to politics, you know things such as timing of the messaging. You're coming 30 days before an election with like this sort of plan, and also there's parts of the plan that I don't really like. You know, like especially point 13. I was talking about it on a podcast the other day where it's like, look, once we get our funding, Black people, we need to make sure we check ourselves and behave and work on our depression, work on our alcoholism.
the Black responsibility one, right? Yeah.
What the hell is that about?
It was really, it was overly abstract.
I mean, white people don't have these problems? Like, so that's innately Black to be an alcoholic, to be depressed, to be this, to be that? Or is that the cause of an environment? So that, I don't know, to me that's racist.
Right. It would have to detail systematic racism more concrete.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, white people in the Appalachia, they don't deal with this stuff? Like, let's be real, like, or small towns in the middle of nowhere, like Hagerstown, Maryland, where I've been at, where they're fiended out and all that stuff. Like, it's the same type of issue. So that was a weird thing. And that's like me. It's like, nah, take that out. Nah, just give us capital or resources. It's fine. We'll be all right. Like, why do we have to behave like we're some sort of savages? I think that's playing with the whole stereotype that we're a certain way. and we have a propensity to like mess things up. And I think that should be taken out of the language. That's some Candace Owens shit where it's like, you're in America, you should feel lucky to be in America. Like it's some sort of like,
I got you.
thing.
I
Like,
got you.
even
yeah.
though they kill a few of us on the street, the cops, this and that, you could have been in a shithole country, but you're here. I don't like that language at all. My thing is with Ice Cube, first off, like you're stepping in a different lane, right? I think it was very how do you call that? Clumsy, the way he went about it. First off, we know his business partner is a straight right winger, a Steve Bannon guy. So it's like that's the guy that takes care of your company, the Ice Cube Entertainment thing that did the league, Big Three League. It's a white guy who's a Steve Bannon guy. So it makes sense that you're leaning towards that side, which is cool. Whatever, it is what it is. But it's like you don't seem to talk about it. But like the audacity and the hubris to be like, just wake up, just because I'm worth a few $100 million and I made good movies and I made good music, and I'm like, I'm gonna speak for all black people in America.
Right.
That's like, come on, man. That's a bit arrogant, man. To just take that mantle without trying to come. I'd rather Killer Mike do that. If Killer Mike did that, even optic wise, I'd be like, yo, I've seen Killer Mike on stuff like that. He's on the ground. He's been.
Well, his articulation is far superior.
I mean, I like
but
his
you know,
politics
what's
better.
interesting is that he didn't. Yeah, that was a big thing too. He didn't take it to anybody.
Right.
So what Black America did he take it to? You know, it's funny because, right, and my producer's the God. I could say everybody would be comfortable if I represent the nation of gods and earths, though. But if I say I speak for all of the gods and earths, everybody like, now Cypher God, nah.
I mean,
right? It would
real.
be immediately because I can't.
Right.
So whatever Cypher is not 100% monolith. You know what I mean? And then he didn't even try to try to attempt to make it monolith. Like, hey guys, let's all do this monolith. Like, let's make ourselves monolith for this. I don't know who he pitched it to. So it had no campaign, nothing.
This guy called Claude Anderson, I think, that wrote it. I'm not too versed on it, but I saw he was on the Breakfast Club and stuff. He probably masterminded and got Ice Cube to jump on board for the name recognition. My thing is, if you had did it right, which my way, I'm not projecting on him. He did what he did, and he tried. I'm not knocking him for that. That's like a year or two project. First off, you got to get the right people at the table, and you got to pitch it to the right people and sell it to the right people to be able to say, yo, this is what black people need.
And see, it's recognized now about 2-3 weeks before the official election, you know.
Yeah.
And now he's really guaranteed that it's a tool.
Right.
And so far, it's been being used as a tool of the Trump administration.
I mean, if he got to say, I'm not getting played. I mean, you know what I mean? Like I tweeted something like, if you got to do damage control the next day after you make an announcement, it's probably not cool because you're already. I don't think he expected that backlash. Like you're stepping in another lane. There's dudes that I listen to, like black dudes with great politics. Like I said, I like what Killer Mike does. I don't know exactly his precise politics, but more or less, I like what he stands for. There's Benjamin Dixon, who's a YouTuber. I love what he's about. Like, you gotta have people like that with you to at least consult with them, to really have like a great plan for everybody.
And I still can't figure out his leverage. You know, I don't know his leverage. Like, it's still hat in the hand. This is a great idea.
Right.
You should do this. Like, he can't say, if you don't do all this, we will.
Right,
I don't know, because I don't.
Well, he's trying to leverage the quote unquote black vote, and it makes me laugh. This is politics. Let's not. I'm not out here trying to push Democrats or nothing at all. I swear.
Right.
But when he's like the Democrats, then listen, they don't care for you. They don't need you. To be honest with you, right now, the way Biden is going, if he felt like he really needed you, he would have went. Trump needed you.
Right.
For that, so that's why he was like, okay, we're gonna put you in and use you.
Yeah.
So that's the part where he's trying to be like, Democrats ain't listen. No, they didn't need you, but Trump did.
They couldn't really fight it out either, because really, if you look at Biden's campaign, it's really like, I'm just gonna watch Trump trip and fumble this one.
Yo,
and I'm gonna do as little as possible though. It's a real. He's just doing Zen campaign. I'm just gonna keep quiet, let him trip up.
He has the
And-
easiest campaign I ever seen in my lifetime.
His whole debate, he just said, I'm just gonna let him fall on his face.
I'm not Trump.
Yeah.
That's all he got. Yo, Trump is such like
Mm-hmm.
a polarizing / disastrous, narcissistic type figure that all he has to do is appeal to like
Sit back.
people and be like, I'm normal, and I'm a normal politician. And guess what? I'd rather a normal politician than, because politicians are politicians, than having Trump. That's all I'm saying. So it's like it's an easy sell for Biden, and it's like for Ice Cube to use that, I think it's there's a lot of low information type voters who don't know better, who will be like, oh, the Democrats said no to it. But nah, you got played, and that's why you got to say you ain't get played, but you actually did. Trump used you.
Mm-hmm.
That's why he agreed. Trump is all about expediency. He's like, yo, can I get 1 or 2% from black males off you?
And that's the thing.
And that's the calculation.
I was saying that Trump is usually, if it looks, it never will look like flip-flopping because he's chaotic.
Right.
So he could always say, yeah, I mess with this Cube thing.
Right.
Well, and then he could mess with something totally like a KKK plan could come through. He goes, nah, yeah, I just wanted to, right?
He could say yes and no to everything in the same sentence.
He's the ultimate politician.
In that
He's
sense,
special.
Right? Like,
he could
he's special.
Basically say he's cool with everything, though. Like he could be like, peace, God, and then be like, hey, Catholic.
And he will do it. And he
it
does
doesn't really, it's totally chaotic. You know what I mean?
Exactly.
But, I appreciate your thoughts on that. You know what I mean? But the bevy of work that Napoleon has. So throughout this COVID, throughout all these months that we've been trapped, people doing hygiene that they never did before, us continuing hygiene that we always did. I was on the train, right? And I was like, damn, that lady took her mask off for no reason, and then she took out a pastry, and I was like, man, you gonna eat like that? But the way that she ate that pastry, oh my goodness, that was a lover. That was a lost lover. And I said, you know what? She can have that pastry. She needed that shit. If it's got COVID on it, it's too late. But you started, it's funny, a not fun year. You started out with one of the most fun album for me, S.STREET 2. Right. And I was thinking this, like, I always like to see 1, 2, and what's the development. I felt like in the first one, with the skits especially, you were introducing like, yo, this is what Afrobeat, the vibe, the nature, what we do and stuff, right? And by the way, that Afrobeat really influenced me because since then I have all of the Fela Kuti albums though. So I have like 40, I think it's like 40 albums. I have them all. So
wow, okay.
But I went in though.
I
felt
to do
that
more education on Fela because I don't know.
Yeah, I was like, that's a good start. Let me start there. Just like I
mean, that's real Afrobeat.
Yeah. And the thing about it was like, I would say that the transition is like there's more comfort. I felt like comfort after the presentation of this genre merging. It was more of an Afrobeat in front of hip hop as opposed to using it in hip hop. Where people will sample something. You know what I mean?
Right.
As most sampled genres go. So to me, I saw it. This is like your Jazzmatazz series.
Yeah.
Where like it's hip hop, but it's Afrobeat out in front. You know what I mean?
For sure.
And it's really great because it really shows the beauty of Afrobeat, the diversity you have over these. Really, Afrobeat has a lot of reggae in it. So, the reggae is in there too. So it's just great work. But what I liked about this album too is that you put raw displays of MCing. So when I heard songs like Boom Aye Afro Pill, but then 16-bit, I was like, holy shit, he put that in there. And yet it kind of fits.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? Because it kind of reminds the listener like, yo, this is an MC making an Afrobeat album. You know what I mean?
Right.
Tell me about the process making that, the comfort zone, because a lot of people wouldn't be comfortable making these tracks. And then from when I first asked you, where people were like, "Oh, he's selling out though," because they're so. These are songs you dance to. You need a lady to get with, and you're jumping on the dance floor. This is club stuff. If the club was playing good music, you know.
Right. Nah, I mean it's the club stuff somewhere out in the world, but not here. You know what I mean? Because you might hear it in Africa somewhere. Somebody throwing in and have a good time. Yo, I mean. It's pure experimentation when it comes to that. It's just like I said, once again, pure fun, pure discovery, pure trying things out, and not being afraid. Like Afro Street is a very important to like my artistic like development and me trying to really find myself through these things and yo, like I like to surprise myself. Like you give me a typical like break beat and I rap, I might surprise myself at this point, but like it's something that I know I could do. Like these are things where it's like I still want to be able to like trip like, damn, okay, I could do that, or that didn't work, or this and that. So it's a lot of experimentation when it came to that. And I wanted to show that, look, Afrobeat or not, to me hip hop is kind of Afrobeat in my head. I'm not saying it is technically, I'm not on some expert, but it's just like it's drums. It's drums, it's bass, it's rhythm. So if I could sample African or something from the motherland and put it on a hip hop tempo, I could rap like that, and it fits that album. I'm just giving you the vibe of Africa in that thing. So I wanted to not just the rhythms. I could be hip hop rhythm, but it's still the vibe of Africa in a way. So that's what I was going for.
Definitely. I want to put a highlight on one of the people that to me is very crucial to a lot of these songs, and B-Bass, you know. A lot of the great songs that you have here, he's instrumental in them, the vibe, the choruses and stuff. Tell me about working with him, because, you know, you've been working with him for years, though. He's definitely a musical partner, you know. And it really, you know, like, I can't see the Afro Streets without him either. You know what I'm saying?
Now, I'm glad you said that. Like, he's like a brother to me. Like, he's just a great friend, man. Ever since I met him, and he has a great. He's one of these dudes when I throw him something and I'm like, yo, I'm trying to do this. Sometimes I give him the idea, sometimes I don't. It's like sometimes he just surprises me, like damn, okay, like he has this genius that I hope he keeps honing. You know what I'm saying? Because I see that in him, you know what I'm saying? So it's part of me also wanting to show the world, like, yo, my brother right there is like so dope. You know what I mean? It's really, I do music, it's not just, it has to have heart.
Right,
and B-Bass is such a good brother to me. And I feel like he's such a genius that I feel that energy and that fun vibe, what we have together, and that trust, it just permeates in the music. So it's deeper than just music when it comes to that.
You know what's interesting is that some of the songs in this, and some of this is because of B-Bass too, the world R&B sound. Right. You know, like I'm thinking like, you know, for the listener, like Les Nubians, remember Les Nubians and stuff, you know, great group. Yeah. Some of the songs have that vibe too. So like when you say Afrobeat, like you know, for the listener, it's not really like, okay, this is one particular sound. It's basically also how the rest of the black diaspora is interpreting music of America from black America, you know, from this black diaspora here in America. And it becomes a real, you know, different takes. And, you know, and I think people that don't really have great collections of world music and stuff, I think these are great albums to really set their ear apart. You know what I mean?
And you know, like one point I want to make too is like B-Bass is just, he's a ADOS, you know what I mean? He's really, and I like how he brings his style to the Afrobeat. So he brings kind of some R&B into it, which is different. Like that song, I think it's called Love Song. That's really a B-Bass song. It's not a Napoleon Legend song. Like I just got a verse at the end. And that's the type of thing that I like to bring in it. To me, in my head, it's kind of like some Raekwon Ghostface. That was the one I was thinking of. Had that Les Nubian vibe, like it really had, you know. So he really taps in really well. That's all him. Like you see, he's one of those dudes where, I didn't come up with that concept. It was like I was like, I like this beat. What's up? And he comes up with the whole concept, and I just add my thing to it. I'm like, I'm gonna put that on my album.
Well, definitely one of my favorite albums, you know, and definitely the album of this year that I go to when I want to hear something different, totally different. You know what I mean? And I think it really adds on to Afro Street. You know what I mean? And right now I have a separate playlist for Afro Street. So when that playlist gets bigger and bigger, it's gonna be, you know, it's gonna be a great party though. So
no, I have so much lofty like goals for the Afro Street series that I'm just step by step getting at it. But it's like in my head, it's not there yet, but I'm gonna get there.
You know, then you released, and this was released where I felt like, and I'm trying to see if I remember this correctly. This is what I remember. I don't know if this happened, but where I was like, oh wow, this is coming out. Where you had like a kind of a vibe where like, oh, this is coming out, and it was the Chikara album.
Okay.
Right, and I
Right.
felt like even you were surprised, like, oh shit, that one's coming out now.
Right. A lot of my stuff comes out like that.
right.
No, you know why? Because I do like one-off like album deals, vinyl deals with certain companies.
Right.
So I'm on their timing.
Right,
So the
right.
album would be done, and then it's like, boom, I'm doing this with Chop Herring. So they got their release date, and I'm like, okay, it falls where it falls.
And then when they released that though, that was definitely the vibe I got though with that. You know what I mean? But when you made that album, what were you thinking about? Because that album was just, you know, that one after Afro Street was just straight hardcore. It was hardcore boom bap. You know what I mean? And it definitely had some lines of worth. But tell me about the experience of making that one.
That one was like different because it was this Italian producer who doesn't even like put himself out there like he's a producer. He's a vinyl collector, and all he collects is Japanese soundtrack, Japanese anime, like vinyls. His whole crib, and he bought my Bronze Saints and my Fist of the North Star, King of the North Star album, and he was just like, "Yo, you know, I make beats too." After he bought it, and I'm like, and he showed me his collection. I'm like, "Yeah, ill collection." So I heard the beats, and he's like, "Yeah, this is strictly Japanese." So you know I'm on my Japanese tip heavy, and I'm like, yo, this dude collects these Japanese like anime movie soundtracks. And he's making beats, and they're very cinematic and colorful. And I'm like if you hear the intro, the beat switches like 3 times or something. Like that's the beats he sent me. I'm like, wow, this is kind of cool. So I decided, I'm like, yo, if you have like 9 or 10 good joints, and
Definitely you saw the challenge in it.
Yeah, I'm like, I'm gonna do a project out of it, and that's what it is. And shout out to Onion Cuore, which is onion heart. That's what it in Italian.
Oh, okay. I was waiting for you to pronounce that.
Right.
That was like,
Cuore, I think. yeah.
You know, there were a lot of, you know, all these things. I might Michael Eric Dyson some bars and stuff, but just throw you some lines and stuff. But you had a great line on the title track, right? And you said decisions hard to make between your value and your values. You know, and it sounds so simple, but that's really. We could define all our careers that way, you know. Like
right.
My career as a writer, I could define it that way, and usually it doesn't always. I don't get to make the decision based on my value. It always gets forced to my values.
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
Right.
So as a writer, as a journalist, though, it's usually I can't think of many decisions that have been based, you know, on my value, where I said I'm worth this, and
yeah,
you know what I mean.
It's tough.
And that's why that line really caught me out there. I was like, you know,
I mean, I think as an artist, and everything like you said, right? You're an artist too, but like that's kind of the game, or that's kind of like the puzzle. You know, where to fit yourself. Like somebody, like you know how much you're worth. It might not be what the real world like is willing to give you yet.
Right.
You know what I mean? So you gotta play like, yo, do I say yes? Do I do it? Do I say no? And it's kind of like, and sometimes people give you above your worth, or what you perceive as your worth at the moment, but it doesn't fit your values. There's also that. You know what I'm saying? Like, am I gonna promote MAGA hats? You know, like there's a lot of that going on. Like, you know, that's a career path right there. You know what I mean? Me and Michael Brooks used to talk about that. Michael Brooks used to tell me, yo, if I know all the right-wing talking points, if I sat there and talked that, I would be rich right now.
Right.
Because all these think tanks, these right-wing think tanks, these billionaires, the Koch brothers, all these people, they put money into this. So it's like there's a lot of cats that sell out for less than $1, which is what I'm saying with a lot of these dudes that are confused. These influencers, like you're a real one. A lot of these influencers on YouTube that you see getting views, they're getting a check that you never know about, or they're getting free YouTube ads, or there's stuff like that going on all the time.
Right.
So your value and your values, because somebody's gonna come one day, yo, you want to do a song? We gonna give you 40,000, boom. But you gotta talk and you gotta throw some shit about how good the NYPD is. And I was sitting there like,
Oh damn! Yeah,
damn,
yeah,
what
yeah.
do I do? Value,
Spike Lee movie.
values.
Right, right.
That's what it is.
That that's a great point, though. You know what I mean? And there's the thing about listening to Napoleon the Legend, because there'll be lines that you get there, like those little lines that, you stay with them for a long time, though. Because when I heard it, though, I was like, damn it, you know what I mean?
That's something you would say.
Yeah, I was like, damn, No, not even on that, though. I probably would.
Right.
But I was like, damn it, that's so true. I was like, these people have been, it's all about my values, though. I don't get to ever go in and go, hey, this is what I'm worth. You know what I mean?
Right.
Because people are always all the ciphers for a writer journalist in the career I've had is based on like, oh, will you do this? This is what we write about. This is what we talk about. You know what I mean? I worked in home magazines, except in like, okay, they don't really write about the music that is good.
Right.
Let me adjust. You know what I mean? So I'm writing news in the music magazine. Like
right.
right.
For
So
sure.
It's stuff like that. But then and it's for listeners though. But then you have the ability to really detail things. There are the couplets like in Get Richer, where you could keep my capital active, activist, collateral damage, action, pragmatist, and just dope. There's no real question there. I'm just for the listeners. Or in People First, the game remains, the players change, switching office chairs. Neoliberal promises got us cynical about the system and its inherent racism visible. By awakened minds blinded by the naked eye, appropriating our style and culture how they plagiarize, or water down the substance to commercialize abundance, because we ain't nothing but a bunch of numbers to these number crunchers. It's things like this where you detail things so vividly, and you constantly did that this year, in the works that came released. And I bug out because your theme stayed consistent, but I looked, there were no Tupac moments where like lyrics were repeated and things like that, I still bug out that you haven't like repeated a verse though, just by like, hey, it just came in there, you know what I mean?
Yeah, you know what happened one day? Like, I got a funny story just off that. Off of Gallo Points joints. I got so many beats, I wrote 2 different songs on the same beat and then realized I had a song written on the beat. So I'm doing so much music, and I sent him the song, and he's like, "Yo, you already did this beat," and it was a totally different song.
Oh man,
that's how much I'm in the clouds.
So you have like an automatic remix,
but
right?
I try hard not to repeat myself, because I'm like, sometimes a rhyme comes, I'm like, I felt like I said that before. So good thing I use my phone. I try to look up. I'm like, okay, I didn't say that.
Yeah,
shit.
and sometimes I feel like it's the emotion, because sometimes you have the same concepts,
right,
but the emotion will come different. I also noticed, and I couldn't find the song, and I'm upset with myself because I was listening to so much music. There was a song where you had, I think somebody else was on it. It was a slow beat, almost, without drums,
okay,
almost without drums. Very light, groove,
right,
very light groove. And everybody on the song was rapping smooth to it.
Right.
You came on and was rapping super speed. Like you rhyming like a whole speed higher than them, and I was like, man, he's just playing, like, trying it out differently.
Right.
And it was all in it, but mostly everybody, especially now with like people rhyming without drums and stuff.
You think it was the Butter Knife Haircuts project?
It could have been. It could have been.
It's one. Yeah, I think I
but
did
there
that
was
a few
track
times.
where like it was totally unexpected. Like he's not supposed to rhyme.
Right.
The way everybody goes now, they rhyme slow on these kind of cuts.
Right,
you know what I mean? Like it's a groove. Get dark and and then you was rhyming at a higher speed. You know what I mean?
But I mean, it's part of my frustration sometimes, because I'm like, look, man, there's so many thousand ways to freak this, and like, let me just, it's just me like flexing. It's like me being a Rucker Park, and like, yo, I could throw it through my legs and dunk it backwards type shit. You know what I'm saying? It still makes sense.
And definitely galvanizing populations from post offices. The way you say something where you just, selling records worldwide.
Right.
And I thought there's so much to talk about though, but I just want to note that the other side really epitomized that album, you know what I mean? And is really one of the great thematic songs you made this year, you know what I mean? That you released this year, you know what I mean? Kind of like that portrait of the artist, micro struggle as how it relates to the entire struggle, and that's something that you did really well on these albums, but I want to talk, let's quickly jump into the Charles de Gaulle album. I'm saying it all wrong, right?
No, it's good.
Okay.
Yeah.
And why did you name it after him?
Right.
And the bilingual stuff, like how, the real question I have in this album is, How do you make? I've always wondered about this though. How do you make the same song? You know what I mean? Bilingual. That is not easy to do. You know what I'm
Right,
saying?
right.
It's not easy to do. Cypress Hill did it with a lot of their hits,
Right.
but they almost had to change a lot of the stuff in the song. You know what I mean?
Right. So Charles de Gaulle was just like, I knew I could potentially get some backlash because I understand he's a colonizer, but it's several different things that went through my mind. I was like, okay, I'm gonna rap in French even though I did French songs on Afro Street too. I don't think the French audience is mostly an American audience that knew me at that point. But then I was like, I'm gonna do some French joints, some real French joints, like 4 solid French joints. And I'm like, what makes you think of France? The first person I think when I think of France is Napoleon. It just is. He's the most famous French person. The second person in France is Charles de Gaulle. When you go to France, you go to Paris, it's Charles de Gaulle's airport. CDG, Charles de Gaulle Étoile. So it was just as simple as that. This is French. Because when I think Charles de Gaulle, you associate it with France. He's one of the big people in France, the big personalities. And he's also, if you're not African, he's loved in France. Like, people love Charles de Gaulle because he during the World War II and everything, he brought back the Republic.
Right.
And he was seen as, even though all these politicians, let me caveat, they're all like did bullshit. You know what I'm saying? And they all made people suffer in other places.
Of course.
But he was actually a more honest politician than the regular.
More than most.
You understand what I'm
Right,
saying?
right.
So he stood out in that way. He's like a Winston Churchill type dude for France.
Got you.
So it was just more like Napoleon, Charles de Gaulle, 2 big men. I'm gonna speak French. So it ain't that deep.
Did you make these songs in French first, then translate them?
But my first thing was like, let me get these French joints off, because the English joints, I do this all day. It's gonna be simple. I didn't know what to expect. I never was really interested in doing French rap until I did an interview last year for a Comorian site, and it got like over 100,000 views. Now, first one I did in French. I'm like, oh damn, the Comorians, people from Comoros, where I'm from, don't know about me. And they just knew, because in English, they don't speak English. So I had to speak French to connect with them. So I tried I wrote my first song, De Rien. I'm like, I could do this. Like, you know what I mean? I've done it in the past, but I didn't know for a fact. So like those Afro Street songs, that I wrote them after I wrote the Charles de Gaulle songs.
Gotcha. Okay.
You know what I'm saying? It's hard to explain, but with my workflow. So
and now you were like, I could add one of that vibe into there.
Exactly. That's what happened.
right,
I was
right.
like, let me add that now that I'm doing
That's
this.
what's great, when the projects are all open,
Right.
and you can
Right.
get with the different vibes.
And I work with a lot of projects at the same time. So it's not like I just got one project I'm working on. I usually do a lot, and it keeps my mind fresh. But what happened was I just noticed that it wasn't really complicated for me to write raps in French, to be honest. And I was surprised by that, pleasantly surprised, and it was a lot of fun for me. I think I just like doing new stuff. That's why my stuff is always different themes, different beats. That's what excites me, man. So it's like, that's part of the fun for me. And then going back and doing it in English was like, it's already done. Once I had the 4 songs in French, and why I did it like that is not to alienate not even that. I wasn't gonna alienate anybody, but I want to be able to pitch it to American DJs, because I know they're not gonna play those French joints, but I want y'all to spin my shit. So I'm like, yo,
Right.
I could send that to Premier, I could send that to Eclipse, I could send that to Tony Touch, and then I
they'll
could send to
take
DJs in France.
Right.
So I could have my joints playing on both sides.
At the same time, yeah. And it was definitely dope, the English that I got out of it. You know what I mean? Let's move on to Street Universe with Giallo Point. Another surprise, because to me, Giallo Point is one of my favorite producers in this renaissance, because I love his samples. You know what I'm saying? And you have a great fluidity with him. This is your 3rd album with him.
Yep.
What makes this one different to you as far as making it in the comfort zone that you achieve? Because I feel like comfort is a lot to do with this year's works. You know, like,
yeah, no, you're right. I think Giallo, I could attribute him to like really teaching me like how I want to sound on drumless beats. like because I didn't have that much before. Then I always knew I could. Of course I could. It's not that hard to do it, but I got even more like in the pocket, where I'm like, oh, okay, drumless beats allow you to do this and put some personality in this and that. So I think as we were going, it just was like more and more like clockwork. And there's more experimentation, like the song 3/4, which is like a 3/4 beat and not a 4/4 beat. So like stuff like that, like he probably sent it to a lot of rappers. They were like, "Yo, I'm not touching that."
Right,
and I was
right.
like, "Nah, I got it." You know, I like stuff. I like trying to like do something new. So I think it was more me and him just got more into like a chemistry when it came to making music together. You know what I mean?
There's so many rhymes here. There's so many bars here. You know, what I like though, you know, immediate flip, because I really want to get into the last album, the latest to me, which I thought it was the peak. I just thought one of the lines that really got me into the cleverness that you really have on this record is like when you said "failure's a bitch." Why are you so afraid of? You know what I mean? Because usually you used it in a totally different way. Like,
right.
She's a bitch though. You can just deal with it. Like, you know.
Right.
There's a lot of cleverness into the. Even when you're uplifting, there's a lot of cleverness into it. You know,
but
what I
it's
mean?
like it's probably remixing stuff too that's familiar, and then like destabilizing you with like switching the meaning of it.
Right,
you
right,
thought
right.
I'm gonna come like this, but I'm gonna just you know what I mean?
Absolutely.
Crossovers, man.
Yeah, absolutely. And a lot of people I know, I think my man Max Lowe, I think that was this is his favorite album of the year from you. But Dragon Ball G, right? To me, the best record you have this year. These are the ones where you're self-producing. It sounds totally different from Bronze Saints. I thought this one had the most emotion out of all of them. You know what I mean? And not emotion like Bronze Saints, but more like intensity. There's a lot of anger. It's intensity, though. This was the bench press Napoleon album. Like I worked out a lot with this shit.
Right.
You know what I mean? And tell me about the vibe that you had when you were making this.
Well, it's the anime, man. Like look, the music of the anime and Dragon Ball is a little more violent. Like the Bronze Saints, that Saint Seiya is more like spiritual. It's more like deeper. Dragon Ball is not a real deep anime. It's like about fighting.
Right.
So it's like the music made me feel like that.
Yeah. And you know, a lot of it was great battle bars, and then you would all of a sudden hit with these insights. And probably some of the best insights are really the way that you actually define really just the whackness of what is, you know, I'm talking so lovely about this era, but the way you define everything that is wrong about this era, you know what I mean? It came out so sharp on these records, you know what I mean? And I highlighted so many things. You know, we don't have that much time to get into all the stuff that I highlighted and stuff like that. But so I want to ask you about a track that I felt like I had written this about Perfect Cell, right? I said there's a dire reality of horribly dehumanized mentalities, not just a theme here in the song, but a general theme you've hit on all the projects. But I felt like this was the song that I would show them. Because I felt like I've been listening to all this together as well. I tend to do that with guys I like. I listen to all their works together. And the dehumanized mentality of our people is something that you really articulate and visualize a lot. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And I felt like it was a heavy theme on this album. You know what I mean?
Yes, I
Really
mean, social media, like it's keeping us, you know, breaking the social ties that we have and changing the algorithm is modifying our behaviors, man. And I think it's easier for them to the oligarchs to keep the money and to keep the power when we're dehumanized and we're hopeless and we're powerless. You know, simple as that.
Absolutely, yeah. Because throughout the whole record, it comes out angry about that. And then this one gives you the details.
Right.
And I think, look, it's hard to say what are classic songs of a year and stuff with so much music, though, but that Shenron, to me, is classic. You know what I mean? There's just an ability that you have to mull things over in your head. Not always give us the answer, but just mull things over and the possibilities of them. And there's so many lines here, you know what I mean? And I just had to say this, though, because I'm low life and everything. When you said some worship logos, some rock clothes to stay warm. All right, you know. You threw the dart, you know. You threw the dart.
I had to say it, though.
I
don't knock it, you know.
No, it's real, though. It's
We're
real.
in Babylon, man.
It's real. It's real. It's first world problems. You know what I'm saying? It's first world problems. You know what I mean? And sometimes we're a first world gang. You know what I mean? Like, yeah, real talk.
I'm first world.
But,
I live here.
you had things like you said, gang related artists. Yes, poverty is heartless. Flip side, culture flourishes where death hits the hardest, and it's crazy. I like you to end on the details of that line, though. You know what I'm saying? Like, us as artists, though, is that all we're worth, though? You know what I'm saying? Is that all that we're gonna be worth, though? Able to articulate hell, you know what I mean, in a beautiful way.
I mean, I think the best parts of culture, unfortunately, kind of come from that. Comes from a lot of poverty, comes from a lot of struggle, comes from a lot of pain. And like if you look at even hip hop music, man, it's a lot of violence in there, and it's also the environment of what it is. When I look at beautiful African music or beautiful reggae music, some of my favorite music, it's a lot of death and desperation and desolate, like people really in the real pain and struggle. And then that's the best art. The best art doesn't come from pop stars like that make techno records, or like, you know what I mean,
right,
like Katy Perry's. I'm not shitting on nobody, but I'm just saying it's not a Katy Perry that's gonna do the most beautiful art. It's gonna be people coming from that environment. Absolutely. And I think there's a true correlation between that.
Yeah, it's such a difficult contradiction to deal with, even as artists. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But Napoleon, the work that you had this year is incredible.
Thank you.
There's so much, as always, when we build, there's always so much more we could build on, and we'll always have to keep continuing this, though. But just congratulating you, and if you want to congratulate him, don't tell him anything. Buy the records, because they deserve to be in your collection for a long time. Go to Napoleon the Legend, bandcamp.com. Follow him on Team NDL on the social media, IG, that's the IG and the Twitter, Napoleon the Legend fan page on Facebook, and ask him about the lyrics, ask him about stuff, and support. He's one of the greatest artists of this time. You know what I mean? And with that said, thank you, man. Thank you for coming through. It's always an honor, though, to have you, on the show, brother. And on that note, we are going to sign off until next time. There'll be a lot more stories to tell, writings to recite, and records to rewind and reminisce. I'm your host, Sunia's Law, a.k.a. S.TREET. And as always, The Power Right Show is a never respect fake broadcast. Peace.